Rain poured heavily outside the hospital window as Ava sat still, her trembling hands clutching a small medical report that had just shattered her world. The doctor's words echoed in her mind like a cruel whisper. You cannot have children. Everything around her blurred into a dull hum. She forced a faint smile, nodding politely before walking out into the storm. Her heart felt heavier than the raindrops soaking her coat. She had imagined a future full of laughter, tiny footsteps, and family dinners. Now that dream seemed stolen before it could even begin. When she reached home, her fiancé, Liam, greeted her with a warm smile, unaware of the storm she carried inside. "What did the doctor say?" he asked, his tone casual, expecting routine news. Ava's lips quivered. "Liam, they said I can't have children." Silence filled the room. His smile faded, replaced by disbelief and discomfort. He stepped back slowly as if her words carried a weight he couldn't bear. After a long pause, he whispered, "I'm sorry, Ava. I don't think I can do this." She stared at him, waiting for him to say it was a mistake. But instead he picked up his keys and walked away, leaving her standing in the dim light, heartbroken, speechless, and alone with the sound of the rain hiding her tears. The days that followed felt like a blur. Ava's apartment turned into a quiet cage filled with echoes of memories she couldn't bear to face. His toothbrush still sat by the sink. His jacket hung behind the door. Everything reminded her of what she lost. Not just Liam, but the version of herself that believed love could withstand anything. She tried to go to work, but even her colleagues' sympathetic smiles made her heart ache. Nights were worse. The silence screamed louder than words ever could. One evening, as she scrolled aimlessly through her phone, she came across a message from Liam. For a brief second, her heart leapt, but it wasn't an apology. It was a short note saying he needed time to move on. That sentence burned deeper than any goodbye. She deleted it without replying, her tears blurring the screen. Days turned into weeks, and Ava realized she had to survive, not for him, but for herself. She began walking in the park each morning, breathing in the cold air, letting nature soothe what medicine couldn't. Yet deep down, a quiet whisper inside her heart refused to die. A whisper that maybe, just maybe, life still had something extraordinary waiting for her. It was a soft Sunday morning when Ava's life quietly began to shift. She was sitting at her favorite corner cafe, staring out the window, lost in the swirl of steam from her untouched cup of tea. A little boy at a nearby table was laughing as his mother helped him stir sugar into his milk, and for the first time in months, Ava didn't look away. Something in that laughter, pure, unfiltered joy, cracked open a piece of her heart she thought had sealed forever. She went home that evening and pulled out her old sketchbook, the one she had abandoned after Liam left. As her pencil touched the paper, lines turned into shapes and shapes into stories. She didn't draw pain anymore. She drew hope, a woman standing in the rain looking at the sky, her eyes filled not with tears, but with light. It felt strange, yet healing. That night, she posted the drawing online with a simple caption. Sometimes, endings are just disguised beginnings. By morning, hundreds of people had shared it. Comments poured in from strangers thanking her for putting their feelings into art. For the first time in a long while, Ava felt seen, not for what she lost, but for what she could still create. Weeks turned into months, and Ava's art began to bloom like spring after a long winter. Her small online page grew rapidly, filled with messages from people around the world who found comfort in her drawings. One morning, she received an email from a local gallery inviting her to feature her work in an exhibit themed Rebirth. For the first time, she hesitated not out of fear, but disbelief that her pain had turned into something others wanted to celebrate. The night of the event arrived, and Ava stood in the center of the softly lit room, her paintings glowing under warm spotlights, each one a chapter of her healing. As she spoke with guests, she caught sight of a man standing quietly in the corner, watching her art with intent eyes. He introduced himself as Daniel, a photographer who said her work reminded him of life's second chances. His words were gentle, his presence calm, and for the first time in years, Ava laughed without forcing it. They began meeting often, sharing stories of brokenness, survival, and rediscovery. Daniel never asked about her past. He focused only on who she was becoming. Yet deep within her heart, Ava wondered if destiny was finally trying to rewrite the ending she once thought was permanent. A few months later, as winter melted into soft spring, Ava began to notice small changes she couldn't explain. A lingering fatigue, sudden nausea, an unfamiliar rhythm in her body. At first, she dismissed it as stress from her upcoming exhibition, but when it persisted, her friend Maya urged her to visit a doctor. Sitting in the waiting room brought back memories she had tried to bury. The same sterile scent, the same nervous heartbeat echoing in her ears. When the doctor finally returned with her file, Ava braced herself for bad news. Instead, she heard words that made her breath hitch. "You're expecting." For a moment, the world seemed to stop. She blinked, convinced she had misheard. "That's not possible," she whispered, her voice trembling. The doctor smiled gently. "It is, Ava. Sometimes life surprises us." She walked out of the clinic in stunned silence, her heart racing faster than her steps. Her hands instinctively rested over her abdomen, and tears filled her eyes. Not from fear, but from wonder. She thought of the life she had built from brokenness, and now life was returning the gift she once thought she'd lost forever. Destiny had not forgotten her. It had simply waited for the right moment to show its miracle. The morning sun poured gently through the hospital blinds, painting golden lines across Ava's face as she held two tiny bundles in her trembling arms. The sound of their soft breathing filled the room. Two perfect heartbeats, two miracles she was told she would never have. Tears slid down her cheeks as she looked at them, her entire world wrapped in those fragile little lives. The nurse smiled warmly and whispered, "They're beautiful." Ava could barely nod. Her heart was too full to speak. Just then, a knock came at the door. When she looked up, her breath caught. Liam stood there, hesitant, holding a bouquet of white lilies. He looked older, softer, regret etched into every line of his face. For a long moment, neither spoke. He stepped closer, his voice trembling. "I heard about the twins. I had to see for myself." Ava didn't look angry. She only smiled faintly. "They're mine, Liam. Life found a way, even when we didn't." He lowered his eyes, his voice breaking. "I was a fool to leave. You deserved better." Ava looked at her children, then back at him. "You're right," she said gently. "But pain taught me strength, and destiny gave me grace." As Liam turned to leave, she whispered softly, "Thank you for walking away. Without that, I'd never have found this." He froze, understanding dawning in his eyes. Outside, Sunlight broke through the clouds, and Ava smiled, holding her miracles close, finally at peace, her heart whole once again.